I've been playing a lot of Baldur's Gate recently. Nothing too crazy. And it's clear that this game isn't just better than most other games coming out. It's a lot better. Which is weird considering how many big game companies have been making bad games this year. Some are bad because the gameplay isn't good, and it feels like they didn't put much effort into it. Some aren't even trying to do anything new. They're just using the same idea over and over and over again. And some games do all that stuff. But increasingly, companies are more focused on extracting money from their customers than they are at making good products. And I wanted to take a look a little bit at why this is happening and how it relates to personality. And today I'm going to focus on that decider axis and how that interacts with the way people make decisions about this sort of thing. So let's start with video games. Blizzard made Diablo 1 when I was a kid, and I loved it. Since then, Blizzard has made 3 more versions of Diablo, and they've been getting a lot worse. Trying to figure out why that happened led me into Blizzard's history, which is kind of complicated.
From 1994 to 1999, Blizzard traded hands through an acquisition or merger 5 times. But the corporate shuffle didn't seem to trouble Blizzard, which continued to make the games that it wanted. Quote, "What was so beautiful about that marriage was they didn't know anything about gaming, and so we got budgets and no strings attached. They gave us the opportunity then to do what we wanted for Warcraft and Warcraft 2. In short, Blizzard was able to dodge its corporate overlords because they didn't really have an opinion on how to run an upstart PC game company.
So what happened? In between Diablo 2 and Diablo 3, Bobby Kotick became CEO in 2008. So what's he like?
A giant human turd. I only have 5 minutes. We could be doing this all day. The interview itself features gems like compensation for talent in this current economy. After literally 1 paragraph earlier stating how Activision Blizzard managed to have $12.6 billion in cash on the books. In the interview, Kotick shared, "We've had every possible form of investigation done, and we did not have a systemic issue with harassment. Ever." So he's definitely not lying and at risk of being immediately exposed as a liar the exact same day in a whole other article. Oh wait, Axios had a story about Activision Blizzard and 114 reports of harassment, discrimination, and retaliation by its employees last year. In the same breath as his previous lies, Kotick went on to state, "But what we did have was a very aggressive labor movement working hard to try and destabilize the company." And yes, you heard that right. He is saying that the only harassment happening at Activision Blizzard are unions destabilizing the company. This article leaves out the fact that back in 2021, it came out that Bobby Kotick left a message to his assistant about how he was going to kill them. He clearly lacks any morals or any sort of compass to guide him except towards more wealth or more money from investors. It's disgusting.
They have crafted what is quite possibly the scummiest, dirtiest battle pass ever. They create a currency, they create that currency's value, and then they make a fucked up conversion rate so you never have exactly as many points as the thing you want to purchase. That is by design, so you will always feel the need to purchase more points. But Blizzard took it a step further than that. So if you hit A by accident, oops.
Let's see if it counted. No!
What?
No! Like, if that's a one-click activation, fuck you, dude. Fuck you!
They ask you how you are, and you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it.
Bobby Kotick might be a bad person or be bad at making video games, but he's great at increasing the stock value of his company. It's easy to look at his selfish behavior and think he might be a savior, introverted decider, either doing what is logical for himself while ignoring how it makes other people feel, or focusing on how much he likes money while ignoring how other people can't afford it. I want to be clear that we can't arrive at that conclusion. He may feel responsible to a board of directors, his family, or his golfing buddies to make as much money as possible to earn respect, which is tribe-centric thinking. We can't use this information alone to determine what his OP type is. I think we can look at Blizzard's behavior as a company and find a deficit in tribe thinking. The company doesn't seem to care if people don't like their games. This will result in what Dave and Shannon call a tidal wave, where not doing your demon function eventually catches up to you. Not making good games will eventually cost them money they so desperately love. So that's what it looks like when a company is extremely self over tribe. Let's look at another example with a company that might be tribe over self. Disney is a successful film company that has been having a hard time making good films recently. Its Avengers movies haven't been doing well. The live action adaptations have been awful, And worst of all, they've drained the Force out of Star Wars, one of the most beloved franchises in history. And I sympathize with Disney because I think they tried their best. But how could a company as rich and experienced as Disney screw up something that should be easy? It's like watching the Empire getting their asses kicked by 3-foot-tall natives with sticks. This should never have been allowed to happen. I think the reason they're doing so poorly is because they've lost track of why they're doing this in the first place. Let's take Rise of the Skywalker as an example. J.J. Abrams directed it, and there's a great video by Empire Records that talks a bit about how the movie got made. Abrams had good ideas, and Disney gave them a few months before they needed to start filming, so they had to write the plot quickly. Carrie Fisher's death added complications, and things kept getting changed. Originally, there were MacGuffins that could blow up a massive fleet of Star Destroyers, but no one tried to explain how the MacGuffins worked or why there was a giant fleet of Star Destroyers in the first place. Each of the previous movies operated on different themes, so connecting with previous work was difficult. Questions like who were Rey's parents, and who the major villain was going to be got pushed back, resulting in the decision to undo the signature accomplishment of the original movies because they needed a recognizable villain. The decision was made over and over again to focus on what cool things should happen and not what would actually happen in this universe or how would characters respond. Abrams has a famous TED Talk where he describes his writing philosophy. He compares script writing to having a mystery box where you don't know what's inside it, and that mystery is what drives the audience forward. Make something that seems inexplicable, and the audience will want an explanation. The problem with that is it makes it too easy to not put anything in the box at all. You can create story elements that are exciting, but have no purpose. Abrams was famous for directing Lost, which was known for having lots of twists, but he focused too much on generating interesting questions and not enough on interesting answers.
I stopped watching Lost, and I watched 5 episodes of Lost, and I turned to my wife and my son and I said, they can't solve this. So I'm not going to watch anymore. And people were telling me, oh no, they're going to solve it. They got a great ending. They never solved it. It was a crap ending. It was a garbage show because they didn't know where they were going, and they kept throwing in twists and turns. Every twist comes with a price. It comes with a price and explanation. So once you have enough twists, you can't explain it anymore. And what I said about Lost is it's either a dream or they're all dead, or they're just going to come up with a garbage explanation. And those are not very interesting stories.
Which sounds like I want something that looks cool, but I don't care about the substance underneath it, which is a lot like tribe over self-thinking. But he doesn't see it that way. When Abrams looks back at Star Wars, he sees the issue as a lack of planning.
Do you feel like that trilogy would have benefited from planning out a very strict 3-movie story from the very beginning? Or do you enjoy that kind of creative freedom to kind of take the characters different ways and kind of see how it goes?
The lesson is that, you have to plan things the best you can. And there are projects that I've worked on where you suddenly find yourself doing something that's 180 degrees different. Sometimes it works really well, but having a plan is the most critical thing, because otherwise you don't know what you're setting up. You want to be leading to something inevitable.
So he thinks if only I had done a better job of organizing, this wouldn't have happened, which is partially true. I'm sure the plot would have come together better if they'd had more time to plan, but none of the ideas they came up with prioritized that deeper meaning, which I think is an example of cognitive blindness. He's not seeing what he's missing. George Lucas needed creative independence to make Star Wars. He made a heroic epic, something that is personally meaningful and widely relatable. But the original Star Wars focused on putting morals into its stories. It had a young hero who was fighting an evil empire, which is like a lot of the other Star Wars movies Disney's putting out. But Luke had to learn that the moral and spiritual power inside him was more powerful than the technology he was up against. The Empire Strikes Back showed how much you can lose sometimes and still get back up. In Return of the Jedi, Luke beats the Emperor by refusing to give in to anger and by forgiving his father. In the new Star Wars, Kylo Ren starts out by idolizing his grandfather, then he wants us to let the past die. In The Last Jedi, the rebels start abandoning a base fleeing from the Empire, and by the end, they're abandoning a base fleeing from the Empire. Zero progress has been made. It feels like the only point of Star Wars is just to make more Star Wars. One of my favorite YouTubers noticed this just by listening to the themes in the music.
Disney has no idea what they're doing. I'm serious. They don't have a plan for this trilogy. They're making this trilogy film by film. They're seeing how people react and then compensating based on the audience's reaction to their newest film. That's why they're interlacing the main story with these additional stories. They want more fan feedback about the direction they should take Star Wars.
So Disney is so focused on doing what they think is popular and forgetting what made it popular in the first place. You could say that Disney doesn't want to focus on deep moral messages because moral messages are divisive, or because Disney itself resembles the the empire sometimes. But I think there's a more fundamental problem. When you focus too much on how to do something in a way that other people like, it's easy to forget why you're doing it in the first place. Let's contrast that with Baldur's Gate. Larian Studios is not a publicly traded company. They're run by this guy, Swen Vincke. He's a rich, crazy person who makes media appearances in plate mail. He could easily make more money by selling stock in the company, but hasn't in order to maintain creative independence. That independence allowed Larian to put more time and money into voice acting and programming to give players freedom to do almost anything they want. They don't have a board of directors pushing them to squeeze out every dollar from the customers, so Baldur's Gate 3 doesn't have the microtransactions or DLC that Blizzard added to keep its shareholders happy. Larian developed similar games in the past, so they put the time and effort into being able to make this type of game in the first place. So Larian knew what it wanted to do, worked with the team to develop an independent video game company, developed the necessary technical expertise, then made a game that respected player choice, finances, and intelligence. So where does that leave us, and why should we care about these companies? One obvious conclusion is that having a board of directors making art for the purposes of making money results in bad art. But I also think there's a more subtle lesson here, which is that their successes and failures look a lot like ours. These companies are suffering from cognitive blindness. They don't realize that they are the cause of their own problems. More specifically, they're not doing all of their functions. So if the magic recipe is just do everything, why doesn't everyone do that? It's hard to fix your own weaknesses if you can't see them. And if you can see them, doing all of those functions well in conjunction with each other takes an insane amount of effort. But it's like preparing for a marathon. Every day gets a little easier, and before long you'll be planning your next big adventure. So in conclusion, dealing with a tribe is hard. Even amazing, brilliant people will do stuff people hate. Not everything has to be a winner. Understanding personality functions can help you with your personal growth and better understand the challenges other people are facing. Taking the time to understand the challenges other people face will help you practice empathy intelligently. Using all of your functions is exhausting. For most people, it takes a lifetime of effort, humility, and a growth mindset to balance them. But if you're able to put in the time and energy to grow and use all of your functions, you can do incredible things. A few closing questions. Do groups of people behave like a person? What's the hardest thing about developing your weaknesses? And what would you do if you could master all the parts of your personality? Thanks to my friends and family who have supported me while working on this channel, and for those of you who have subscribed, I'm incredibly grateful to all of you.